dearest friends. And we are all in New Mexico because filming this tomorrow, April 2nd, will be 4 years since Steve passed away. And so I reached out to my girls when I knew the anniversary was coming up and said, hey, can we all get together, please? And it's really special because these were the girls that used to come to my house when I couldn't leave my house just to give me some girls' nights. We set a lot of intentions every time we were together. They really introduced me to tap into my creativity. They're really beautiful, brilliant, creative beings, and I feel really lucky to have them. And we have just had some really beautiful, deep conversations while we were together. And I thought it would be a really beautiful thing to come share with you guys because they've been a huge part of me getting through the caregiving journey, but also my healing afterwards and inspiring me in major, major ways. And one of the big topics of conversation we've had was artful living and just making life be poetry just by being in the moment of every moment we're in and absorbing it and then sharing that with others in a creative expression. So I'm very lucky to have these ladies as friends. This is Maria, this is Adelaide, and this is Charlotte.
Nobody knows me as Adelaide anymore.
People call me Charlie too now, so we've both changed it. Wait,
I'm still
Moth.
Maria.
you're Mom. Oh, would you like us to call you Mom?
No, I don't
Oh, no.
care what you all call
But
me.
Mom
Okay.
is so pretty.
Mom is beautiful.
And I also have you in my phone as Lady Clementine.
Clementine works too. But for the good people, Moth.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I think this is perfect. This is a good
Do
introduction
you want
to who
us
we
to
are.
call you Charlie instead of Charlotte?
Either one, you've always called me Charlotte, but
Yeah.
everybody calls me Charlie.
I like all of my names.
I
so
like
I'm
having
happy
names.
for people to call me all the names,
Yeah.
but Moth is just what I use for like art stuff and things like that.
I'll also share all their info so you guys can go follow them because they're super inspiring and I have a feeling you're going to fall in love with all of them. So what is something that is like a big takeaway from our time that we spent together while you were visiting me with Steve? Does anybody have any thoughts on that?
While we were
I
visiting
think
with
just-
Steve and what we.
Yeah, I think just like the importance of like feminine energy and like collectively creating together and dancing together and painting and yeah, and I think that's something that I've always just kind of prioritized in my life because there's nothing like it.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like in those nights we would come together for those girls' nights. We were so all feminine and free in our energy, but we freely flowed and we've carried that to here, like cooking together just freely and then creating or dancing. And we came to empower you, but I felt so empowered by it and I felt like it was so important to all of us having that energy that just let us be free to create and flow and love and do it.
Yeah.
And just spark your creativity just because you're being around the energy you need to be. And it's so important to be around your people that bring that to you and bring it out of you. And
Like a give and take. Like
yeah.
I mean, like what you said, like the free flowing energy and how, you know, we were there for you, but at the end of the day, like it was for us as well.
Yeah.
You know, so it was like a give and take of energy that was really nice.
I love that.
Yeah, I always came away from our time together very nourished.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nourished. I love that word.
Very, very nourished. And I think we've all grown since that first time we all got together. Our lives have expanded and grown from that. So, and I do feel like it was a spark for me. I know just coming for you has made my life work immensely better.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think there was a lot of ways in which I felt stuck sometimes while I was taking care of Steve. And I remember there was a lot of times you all taught me to find the beauty in the stuckness, like just to kind of learn to sit with it by making something beautiful in the moment. And like since we started hanging out, my space grew, like art started to cover our walls and I started making really sacred spaces just to go sit and breathe, and everything sort of became a way of making the sticky, hard, challenging parts of caregiving turn into something really beautiful. And I think that was like really exacerbated. I don't like that word, but it was really brought out by you all coming and spending time with us.
Yeah, and I think when we get together, sharing the things that are challenging for us, and when you were going through that time, the things that were sticky and hard for you, just being able to get together and have us reflect back that you were doing an amazing job.
Thank you.
You know, and same with all of us.
Yeah. We all do a really good job at building each other up. And we're all also really good at calling each other out for not building ourselves up.
How many times have you told me not to say sorry?
Yeah, you do a good job at that. You
Yeah.
do a good job at reminding us.
Yeah, and I feel like it's been a really beautiful way in which I feel my friends' beauty reflect my beauty, and the ways in which I feel like that warmth of gratitude, just being able to be in everyone's energy. Like, we actually did a meditation where we were visualizing each other's like goals, and we created energy, and it was heat. There was like heat in the room afterwards.
And I was like, open the door, open the door. It's 30 degrees outside, but open the door.
Yeah, and we haven't all been together since, what did we figure out, 2016? And so it was really beautiful that here we are in 2024 and we just picked up with the same connectivity. And more, yeah.
Because we've all kind of grown and missed it. I think I've missed it more than I thought I did now that we're together. So I feel like it's been even better because we've taken that same energy and all of us have grown.
Yeah.
And we've brought that growth to this.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think it's been beautiful because I do remember times that we would sit and kind of dream, and now I get to witness my friends kind of living in that.
And we get to and you too. Yeah. Sorry,
Thank you.
Oh.
Sorry for what? See, yeah, we all have to still hold each other accountable. And so, do you guys want to share a little bit about your own individual creative projects or your processes that that really help you, whether it's getting through a block or just working on a project together?
Okay.
Well, I think we're surrounded by Charlotte's like beautiful art in here. This is her home.
So
let's
yeah,
start.
we've come to what my greatest part of my inspiration is I've discovered New Mexico, and it is my heart place, and it's where I come for most of my spark and inspiration and meditation and all that kind of stuff. So it is about finding what it is that gets you unstuck, clears you, makes you do something, make a little spot in your house that just brings you joy. It doesn't matter where, it's about making what's around you bring out what you need. And that's where I find my inspiration. And from people, like remembering, like I do a lot just in my space because I'm learning what exactly it is that sparks me. So I spend a lot of time creating and getting inspired by myself. Like even out here, I spend a long time by myself and it's such a spark. But then doing something like this and being with my stuff with also the people energy and remembering how important it is to be with your people and people who bring out all that stuff just the same and make it sparkle. That's where my creativity comes. That's what, I don't know, it's about what's around me. And I don't know, this is the place because I've discovered covering myself or surrounding myself with beautiful things. Handmade things, really.
Yeah.
Handmade things are so important to me.
It's really beautiful. And I feel so like privileged that you let us come to your sacred spaces and share the energy because it's very palpable here.
Yeah.
Do you want to share some of your process?
What I'm most inspired by, I think, is movement. When I'm moving through places, helps me feel unstuck. Like if it's a mental block, just physically moving to a different location, and it usually has to be outside of the town that I'm in, will just open me.
Yeah.
And make me realize that I'm not the center of the universe. And, yeah, and then also reading. I've talked a lot about that this week.
Yeah.
I've just been consuming a lot of other ideas, and I'm enjoying learning about how other people critically think about different ideas, topics.
How about you?
I think for me it's stillness. I think when I'm like still and super present, then that's like when ideas come to me. And usually it's in nature, or like even in company, but in stillness. Like when we were laying on the couch, like just all still and quiet and reading, like there were free flowing ideas in my mind. So yeah, I think just like being present and being still.
Beautiful. Yeah. I think what's really beautiful is whenever I travel, I don't always know what to expect because it's still a new thing for me that I get to leave. And then everyone was kind of sleeping and doing their own morning routine, and I just sat here and I opened the window to a raven flying by, and a poem for Steve, which I'll share with you guys, just kind of flew out, and I was like, that's kind of how I feel about movement too. It's that when you go somewhere else and your mind and your heart get to tap into that space and you're really present in that moment, it almost is like it flows through you in some way.
You're adding a new collaborator.
Yeah.
When you're in a new space.
I love that.
Yeah,
That's
it's
really
so true.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's also why part of the healing power of art is connecting to place and sharing what you create with the places that you're in,
Yeah.
with your own community, with community in the place that you're making the art.
Yeah.
I like to be still, but then I like moving for me and traveling for me is a little bit uncomfortable, but I almost like sit with that discomfort and then I like find beauty in it.
Yeah.
Like, for example, yesterday
True.
going to your friend's house, I was like, oh, I don't really want to go. I was like, I just want to stay here and
I
read.
saw it on your face.
Yeah. But then I went and I was like, oh, I'm so glad that I
Yeah.
came, and this is so beautiful and I feel so inspired. And that's just kind of how I am, like moving through life. I get a little bit fearful, but then I'm glad that I ended up doing it.
Yeah. It's kind of like when my son, when Jaden came to see you in LA, because he had that long layover. He's like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I just want to be at the airport. I'm like, Jaden, you need to do it. And then afterwards, he's like, Mom, thank you, because that was amazing. He felt like it grew him.
Yeah.
Because it's like he went out with you and he showed him great places and he felt so like inspired and part of the world, and it's the same thing.
Yeah.
He wanted to just go from point
Stay in
A to
comfort
point
zone.
B,
Yeah.
which is what we do. I just want to be comfortable, and then you're forced out of your bubble. You kind of go, okay, I'm uncomfortable, but the things
where the
we
growth
learn
lies.
from
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
I think that's
Yeah.
especially like, I don't know, a good thing to remember right now coming out of the pandemic, that we're emerging from coming into even social spaces feels more outside of my comfort zone than it used to be.
Yes,
People are wanting to stay home more and not do group activity. Doing group activities online is an amazing tool. But also, I think the value of like connecting in person.
touch and actually touching the people you love.
But it does require jumping over a little bit of a mental hurdle that I think wasn't there before we were all at home in our individual spaces.
Absolutely.
And I definitely feel like my experience coming out of the pandemic was exaggerated because I was coming out of a 9-year caregiving journey where I never left. And one of the things we were talking about is acceptance of where you are in your process, and how I was telling them that there was a long time I was having panic attacks in the grocery store, and I would leave so that I wouldn't break down in front of people. And then the way that I actually finally got through having panic attacks in the grocery store was just letting myself cry as I was going through the grocery store, and accepting that I was not okay being out in the world after Steve. And that is how I actually became okay being out in the world after Steve. And leaving in every way I've left my house since then has just been, this is anxiety provoking, but it's also been so empowering because it hasn't debilitated me. And one of the ways in which I've gotten to that point was celebrating every little step it took me to get there. And that's something that I like to encourage my friends
That's what you're
with.
teaching
Is
us.
like
Yeah.
we have to celebrate every little way we show up, because that's how we can show up more embodied and more accepting of wherever we are in the process.
And it makes your advice stick even more that you do practice what you preach.
you.
Yeah.
Preach, mama.
Okay, so we've also talked a lot about how healing our creativity has been to us. Does anyone want to talk on that? Because you just wrote an entire album basically processing and healing.
Yeah, I think like right before we started writing the album, I was just going through a bit of a transition and really focused on myself and focused on like my self-healing, and then writing the music, and at the same time as like going through this like self-healing journey was it did like save me, because I processed my emotions through the music, and then outside of the music, like I would process my emotions. So it was just this whole process of healing
Yeah.
while writing the album.
Yeah.
And then now, kind of at the end of it, we're done writing the album, and now kind of putting it out. I feel like a completely different person than before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Do you all have any healing creative experiences?
Your anxiety sculpture.
Oh yes, I'd shown you that. I was, it is cathartic. That's the word, right? To
Yeah.
get it out and
Yeah.
to do the work and to sit with it, and things will come out. It's like one day I didn't know how to process kind of that feeling of what my anxiety is, and I made a sculpture that literally I was like, it feels like someone's pushing on my back, and so I just did that, and it really did come out in the piece. And then I met someone, the person who bought it, they just looked at me and said, I know what that feeling is. And their partner had recently passed away, actually. And they said, it's the feeling that I feel. But I had named it like my friend, because it's still, I don't want my anxiety to be something that I need to get rid of. It was like, you're there, I recognize you. And yes, you're like heavy and pretty like dense, but you're just a part of me. And it's what I carry you through, and I heal with you. And that's what art does. And then to pass that on to somebody else who then got that same thing, I felt like I took my thing that I struggle with and was able to put it in something that then helped somebody else. And then that's how I connect my creativity and my process to my community. And that's what somebody had asked me, how do you get rid of your work? How do you sell it? And that's how I sell it. Because I think at the end of the day, as much as we heal and do what we need to do for ourselves, sharing it with any part of a community, one person, two people, a million people, is part of the process. It's like the end,
100%.
not the end goal, but it's like a prize to share it rather than keep it. And that's so important to the entire process.
Yeah.
I love that.
And
And I relate to that with music as well.
Yeah.
'Cause it's like we could just easily write songs and then never put them out and just write them for ourselves, and we do that, and that's like a beautiful part of the process as well. But I love what you said, that like sharing it is also part of the process, because again, it's like that give and take. So I love that. I relate to it so much.
I think what's beautiful about everyone sharing is that you're making it not with that person in mind, but with your personal process and healing or whatever journey you're going through. And then you just understand that there's going to be someone out there that relates so much to it that they're going to grab onto it and be like, oh, I needed this. Like a song, like I needed that song to get through my process, and like the person that bought that sculpture. But you weren't even thinking about them when you made it. You were working on your own thing, and that's why it translates so beautifully.
And I think what it is that it's when you let yourself in your creative process actually sit and be with yourself, then you're putting into your work yourself that is nobody else. And then people can receive that authentically. And that person who bought that sculpture recognize that authentically because it was an authentic feeling.
Yeah.
It wasn't me putting an ugly, scary hand on the back of someone and making it look like a horror.
Yeah.
It was my feeling, which is a very hard feeling to portray
Yeah.
in artwork, is to capture like both sides of a feeling
Yeah.
and to get the whole, because we're complex. We're not just angry, sad, like we're everything all at once. And it's like if you just let yourself put everything in, then it will come out at the other side. And then that's what you see. That's your gift to the world. Like your gift is sharing your feelings and experience. And
I've been switching mediums lately, and I think my relationship with new mediums is what's been feeding me and helping me grow through challenge and pain and emotions that I didn't know existed. But switching to textiles this year has just kind of made me, it feels like I can process what I'm experiencing emotionally in time with the medium that I'm working with. When I was painting, it was really fast and it felt like things just would flow through me, and I needed that at the time, but I feel like I require more thoughtfulness at this time in my life, and being able to, even if I don't have words for what I've been experiencing, but having a material that's sort of, I can work on a little piece at a time, and I'll come in and I'll just be crying like working on a piece, but it's slow, and then I come back the next day and I'm in a different mood, and it feels like I'm just putting all of it feels like a story that you're able to connect whatever energy is asking to be expressed into this physical thing.
Yeah. I love that. So
What about you?
I think honestly, I've had to allow myself to see myself as a creative, and we were talking about this, like creativity is kind of everywhere. It's in the way you cook, it's in the way you get dressed in the morning, it's in the way you communicate with people. I feel like I'm creative in my therapy even, but for a long time, because I'm surrounded by so many brilliant people, I never really actually saw myself as a true creative because I was just throwing paint on canvas and none of it really looked like anything. And actually it was Charlotte one day, when she had come over, I was interested in learning some more techniques about drawing, and she said that it's one of those things where you have to learn to find your way of expressing it instead of trying to have it be looking like everyone else's art that you experience. It's like the goal is actually you find what your version of it, how you express it. And it was really helpful for me because in that moment I stopped trying to draw like she does.
Perfect bird.
I started to draw like what was going to come through me with what the interpretation was. And since I've embraced that and I actually allow myself just to play, and I think that's really been it. It's like I took away that pressure of it having to be perfect or compared to anyone else's, and it's just a playful time for me to work through emotions. Now I actually love everything I create instead of judge it because it came from a place of like moving energy, and you can usually feel it in my pieces where I'm like working from something hard to where I end up getting into a place of like really deep gratitude and even delight. And like my process is like it starts a little bit dark and then I just add light layers, and then eventually there's just like color bursting everywhere. And it's been incredibly healing for me to let myself play and find my voice instead of judge my voice. So yeah.
Because that's where the magic happens. The magic happens where you, nobody else is in your head
Yeah.
but you, or just you know? It's when you're thinking about, oh, I need this perfect bird so that people will think it's a bird and know it's a bird. You're not trying to capture a picture of a bird. You're trying to share your expression of that bird.
Yeah.
And if you were trying to draw a bird like me, you're not drawing the expression of the bird you see.
Yeah.
And that's what,
Yeah.
and I've seen that click and change in your work, and it's beautiful. because you were trying too hard to make a perfect bird.
Yeah.
And then now you make these birds that are your characters and your expression, and it's you.
Yeah.
It's not about copying or wanting to make something else. I want to paint like them. I want to sing like them. I want to dress like them. It's about what sparks you. What is it in you that you need to share? Because there's no other you.
Yeah.
You know, copying me is just copying me. That's not you.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
And giving up on like perfection.
Yeah.
You know,
100%.
like that's something that we deal with in music and the production. Like I'll get stuck on like the fact that there are like little cracks and pops in the mix or something like that, and then, you know, Josh, my creative partner, is just like, yeah, there are cracks and pops because we have a home studio. We're not recording in a professional studio, and we don't use the best mic, and so that's just a part of who we are. The cracks and pops are just there because of how we record.
It's part of the story.
It
It's part of the story.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
part of the art.
And so I was like, okay, let's add some more cracks and pops.
And I found with art,
Collaborative.
art to me, I like art that has that. It has
Yeah.
funk.
Yeah.
The stuff I fall in love with has something funky, something
Sure.
dirty, something,
Yeah.
something. It's like hearing you sing one day, like you're singing something and it was so, and then all of a sudden there was like other like guttural thing. I don't know what it was, but it was like, oh, that's my funk. That's the gunk. I like a little. Everything's gotta. Because life isn't perfect. Life is gunky.
Yeah.
You know, like it's.
It's also part of that acceptance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's sexual energy that you're creating with. It's the same.
Yeah, the energy is the
Creative-
same.
Creative energy is sexual energy, and you're not, it's bad sex if you're thinking, I need to make it look like I'm having sex right now.
Yeah.
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 You're doing that with art. It's the same. Like, you have to, if you're not feeling it, embodying.
Yeah, it is the same. Yeah, the best
It's gonna
sex
be
is when you're
awkward.
just lost in the
Weird.
moment, you
Yeah.
know, right? And not thinking about what it would look like.
Yeah.
Just
You know?
being free, which is something that I think we've all brought to each other. And I kind of want to wrap this up and paying a little homage to Steve.
Oh, yes.
That's kind of what brought us all together was
Yeah.
that, Steve himself didn't necessarily think of himself as an artist until Jeremy decided to work on the Drive project with him. And I think that became his passion. He felt so alive in it and felt so inspired to share his story in that way, because all he had was his wheelchair to express himself in. And I think each of us have been able to look at that kind of experience that Steve went through, where he was in one of the hardest situations, yet he still found that will to live a very full, alive life. And I think in many ways we all carry that with us. And I'm thankful because he brought us all together.
Yeah.
And it's all, he's the catalyst of us all meeting.
It is.
And it's just we were talking, sometimes people will come into your life and you have no idea what other goodness they're going to bring into your life. It's just kind of beautiful when that happens, when they bring you connections and opportunities, and it's the power of feeding your connections and feeding the relationships
and looking for the surprise stuff too, because that's what it is. We came for you. I didn't know Steve. And then I got to know Steve. And I came for you, but the lessons that he taught me I will always carry with me, because he taught me so much about using my voice, using my body, using my mind, and even using your body even when you can't use your body.
Yeah.
And I learned so much from you and us and all of us being together, but Steve was that beautiful catalyst that brought us together, but also was kind of like a part of the core that we ended up all celebrating our lives, our bodies, our energy because of Steve.
Yeah.
Because
And I
of Steve.
think for people who didn't know Steve, his lessons still live on through you.
Mm.
And then you teach us, and then we teach other people. So it's the ripple effect of what you learned through those years with Steve. His lessons just carry on
I
for
love
all
that.
of us.
For sure.
Especially in not accepting what other people believe that you're capable of.
his
both of
drive,
you,
his,
yeah.
your drive, his drive
Mm-hmm.
to get through when everybody was probably telling you. Well, I know they told him.
Yeah.
He was done many times,
Yeah.
and he pushed through and showed you what he could do, and the joke, and just still being Steve in
Yeah.
hard times. I remember one day being at your house and something was happening that wasn't comfortable, and then all of a sudden he made some freaking joke. I can't even remember what it was. It was the word fuck came up. It was like fucking something. I don't know, but then it was I don't know what it was, but it was like
He kept us laughing.
he
Yeah.
kept us laughing, and I'm like, oh my God, Steve, thank you. Like, thank you for like breaking it and teaching us that
There's
like
joy
him.
no matter what.
Mhm.
He was very much like, he smiled at every person that came in
Yeah.
the room,
Mhm.
and he, the resilience that I think has been beautiful to witness in the human spirit is that, we all go through something hard. It may not be as hard as an ALS diagnosis, of course, but like we all go through challenges. We've all sat and kind of shared our challenges and our overcoming, and it's like the human spirit is so resilient and so wants to be able to learn and grow in those experiences, and especially within community. When you have the right people that are going to come and say, hey, you're going through something really hard, like let me sit with you right now and process with you. And it's been beautiful, and you've all been a part of that, and you've all been a part of that, and I just feel incredibly privileged for the whole my whole life, really, but this whole experience, like every time I reflect on it, which I do a lot during anniversaries, I'm like, wow, we were really wrapped in a gooey, warm hug of just like care and goodness and support, and I want that for everybody. Like that fuels me for my future goals. Is like, I want that for everybody. Thank you, Steve. All right, I will share where you can find all of these lovelies, and love you. Bye. Group hug. Yay. There's been a lot of group hugs. Love bubbles.